So it's been 20 years now of career, but people see the glory but not the story. You know, so it's thank you. Boo, 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 boo. Bra. So. Hola, ¿cómo están?
All right. To get started, you just got back from Europe.
Yes.
And you were celebrating a birthday.
Yes, my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Tell us what you did and how you celebrated.
I was there, actually. I celebrated with my family. I love to gather with all my friends and celebrate all the blessings that I'm healthy, that I'm 41 and I look 20. No, but yeah, it was beautiful to be with all my friends and my family in Ibiza. I was doing a show with The Snake also, like 2 nights in Ibiza. So we were there already, so we made the party there.
Nice.
But it was May 7th, my birthday, actually.
Okay, so this was a late celebration.
I was touring, and I'm like, I had to celebrate my birthday no matter what. So I wait a whole month, and we're here.
You had a birthday month. So
yes.
Perfect.
A year.
Since we're talking about kind of your birthday and a new year and a new beginning, I kind of want to take this moment to really look back at this career that we've been talking about. And I want to start with you growing up in Medellin. Tell me a little bit about what your childhood was like and what baby Balvin was like.
Ooh, a headache. My mom said that I used to cry a lot, but no, it was a beautiful. I grew up in Medellin. I grew up, middle class, beautiful family. My parents still together. My mom has always been my best friend. She's my guide. I've still called her, every time before a show for the blessings. Like to me, that's the one who make me believe that I can, that I can make it, And my dad, a super hard worker, man, amazing sister that I love. So it's basically like a regular family, quote marks, that come from age in Colombia, a stable family, thank God. And I was always really curious. I always, asking myself, why? And I'm still doing that every day.
What was your entry point into music? Was your family musical?
We had some people in the family that, they were poets, poetas. And my mom, she plays el acordeon. Pretty weird. Super random, but we got vallenato in Colombia, so she know how to play that. What other countries they play that? Is like in Switzerland or Sweden? República Dominicana tiene el acordeón. ¿Qué lo que? So yeah, my mom played that, but I didn't have anyone like close that I was like a performer or a singer. No.
Where do you think the bug came from for performing?
Ooh, I mean, that's a good question. But I think just the fact that I grew up with my dad listening to salsa all the time and listening to baladas, my mom listening to Ricardo Arjona or like a lot, like Juan Gabriel, Ana Gabriel. You see, how old are you, Jesus Christ? Oh my God. So yeah, listening to all these guys, and I was listening to music. I was like, this is good. I like it. But then when I started listening to rock, I started listening a lot with Nirvana and a lot of rock, and then I started playing guitar to make their covers, and then I fell in love with Metallica, and then I started doing more covers, where I was the guitarist of the group, and then I came to New York once, and I deeply fell in love with the hip hop culture. And then I left the rock. No, but no. I love rock. I still listening to rock music. But yeah, definitely when I came to New York, this city opened my mind to be like, oh wow, this culture is cool, and the fact about the dance and the fact about the different type of rap and breakdancing and graffiti, like the whole culture in general catch my attention. And also like the business side of the rappers doing brands and stuff like that. So I was like, ooh, I love this.
Yeah.
Nueva York!
I actually did see that before New York, and I want to get to New York because I know that you have a long love of the city. You actually, the first entry point into the U.S., you went to Oklahoma for a while as an exchange student.
Super random.
Tell me, I want to know what your first impressions of the U.S. were based on getting there first.
You see my face? Wow. I was doing this thing of being an exchange student, and so it was like a lottery. Like you put the hands there, you get the paper, and it says Atoka, Oklahoma, and I'm like, what in this world is this? Yeah, absolutely. I just want to be a little polite, and then so I was expecting, at that time, just internet was just like kind of blowing up, so we didn't have basically Google to search about how's Oklahoma and Atoka. And it was funny because when I flew there, I got there and I was in the middle of a forest, nowhere, in the middle of nowhere with coyotes and big bears and all the crazy stuff. And I used to live like in a house where the biggest train passed by at 6 in the morning every day. So I didn't know the first night that I slept there, and then I thought it was a huge earthquake. I was like, what is this? And it was the train. And then they took me for the first time to the high school, and they had something really weird that I haven't even seen it when I was in Colombia, and I still don't see it yet. They have a basketball donkey game.
What is it?
Yeah. They were on donkeys, throwing the ball, hooping that thing. So I'm like, wait, I don't even see this in Colombia. Like, I'm supposed to go like I was expecting to see it kind of like in New York. And then it was this town. I think this town has, 5,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Max. You can Google it. It's called Atoka. Atoka. So I went for the first time to high school there. And I remember that, I went to the lunchroom. I sat down, and immediately I sat down. All the people left, and they left me alone. And that's when you realize that, the racism, And it was really weird to me to feel that because I never felt that before. But it gave me a lot of strength and also to understand how different the world can be.
Yeah. You did eventually make it to New York.
Yeah.
And I understand that there was some time kind of on this same topic when I think you were...
I was kidnapped. My mom and my family always told me to be nice and, to serve people and help them, like as a good Latino mom, they're like, Jose, if the lady wants to, clean something, just go ahead and help her. So I started, helping the lady a lot, and I think she liked that. And I'm like, okay. So I was helping her a lot, showing a lot of love. I think they were super cold there to express themselves. And one day I went to high school again, and I started using Messenger at that time. And I was like, using Messenger, and then she's like, no, you cannot use Messenger because you're speaking Spanish with your friends, so you're gonna forget English. And I'm like, I don't even speak English anyways. so what's gonna happen here? And I started seeing a type of like a certain behavior that it got like kind of weird. So she blocked the classes for me of computer science. That's the name, right? So they they blocked me. They didn't let me get use internet, so I stopped having any contact with any of my friends or my family, and I just didn't get it, and it was basically kidnapped.
So how
And
did
then
you
when I
get
wanted to
out?
escape, I packed all my luggage, and I was like, "Where's my passport?" And my passport wasn't in the room. So that's when I found out that she got my passport, and I have to do a whole quest to find it like 6 months, no, 3 months after. So it was really interesting story, and that's how I end up in New York.
Wow.
Yeah,
So once you do get to New York, I understand there was a period of your life where you were kind of doing all kinds of things. You were dog walking, you
yeah,
were
it was cool.
painting houses. But
Yeah,
I at the time you were working without a permit. You were essentially living undocumented.
yes,
I
yes.
want to ask you what that period of your life taught you about the Latino experience in the US, like having
Well,
gone through that.
it was really hard, the fact that the payment, it was crazy. You see the one who got our official and the one who doesn't is just like 70% less. So this a lot of these people taught me a lot about resilience because it was a really tough job. I was painting houses in Miami and Orlando, and doing fixing the floors, and it was a really hard job. Like I have a lot of love for all the immigrants that also the illegal immigrants that have this job because it's really tough, and I know how it feels to be in their place and in their situation. So that's why I'm so proud to be Latino because it's always like I know what's the resilience and what they gotta go through. Yeah. So it was hard. It was really hard. And then I came to New York. Walking dogs is more fun. And I remember there was one dog that was living in a penthouse by himself. And I was like, this is a dog life that I want. So yeah, like I saw a lot of things, but we're here, we're blessed. We came, then I came to New York once again, looking for opportunities, knocking doors in the radio stations, uh, until they play my song one day.
Yeah. You eventually went back to Medellin and
Yes.
were also very active in the scene. There are pictures of you playing local parties with Carol G. I think you crossed paths with Maluma. What do you remember about that time, about sort of these stars in Medellin that were
Yeah,
coming up?
it was beautiful, because there was a lot of artists before me in urban music, but I think I was one of the biggest dreamers. And because what I taught in New York, what I learned in New York about business and about how these rappers move, I brought that mentality to Medellin. Be like, oh, I want to create a brand. I want to be, like not just evolving, also like how can I create my own world and how can I make a statement in this. So I started like singing I started doing freestyle battles at the beginning. So like that how I like earn my respect in the streets. Before or still maybe in Colombia, there's like rap and reggaeton is like a huge battle. Like they don't like each other. That was at that time. I don't know how it is now. I don't have time for that. No, I don't. But so I earned the respect winning all these freestyle battles. And that way the rappers, when I started doing reggaeton, they couldn't hate on me because like, oh, he beat Assassin's up. Like he won so many freestyle battles. So they started doing reggaeton, and one day, like everybody loved reggaeton, but they didn't want to say it. But the hoods weren't really loving it. They were loving it. So I started doing reggaeton, playing reggaeton in the hoods, and that's basically the people who really support me. And I didn't want to make any cover, never, because I was like, these guys are already rich and famous, but I'm going to perform their songs, you know? And I started doing just my own songs where no one knew about them. So they were like, well, I don't care. I'm like, one day those songs that you guys don't know might be big hits, you know? So I was doing all my shows. So it was getting more confident on stage and feeling the love of the people. And finally, one day I had a show where they were giving me $1,000,000. That sounds big, but it's $1,000,000. It's like $150 now. So I brought my dancers, and I have like 6 dancers, and we had a beautiful show full of my friends, my mom, my grandma, my aunt, just my friends, acting like they didn't know me. Ah! And I remember I have that show, and at the end of the show, I didn't realize that my dancers, they broke a whole window.
Oh no.
So when I got out, and I'm like, okay, time for the payment. And the guy's like, okay, 100,000, 100,000, a million, but give me 100 back because you guys, your dancers broke a window. So so I ended up with $200. I gave them 100 for them. It wasn't their fault. And I kept my 100, and I bought a cell phone.
I mean,
That was the first thing I bought when I had the first show, my first gig. A nice cell phone at that time.
I mean,
A Motorola, I remember.
you need
A Razor.
it.
Yeah, I feel so gangster. But going back about when we started, that you say about Karol G, is because one day I performed in a Sweet 16,
That's right.
of course. So so the girl who was, her birthday, she's like, oh, I have a cousin, you want to let her come on stage and sing with you? I'm like, yeah, sure. And that was Karol G. And since then we're friends. We don't see a lot each other, but she knows that I have a lot of love and respect for her, and where she at, from the Sweet 16.
You were with her at Coachella.
Yeah, of course, we always support each other, She asked me to go, and of course, I was there. That was, I don't know, 3 months ago. Really beautiful moment. It was beautiful.
Looking back at sort of that period early in your career and all of these breakthroughs that you were having, how did you feel at the time? How did you make sense of it? Because it happened incredibly. You had worked for so long.
It feels fast, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
It took me. It's been 20 years now of career, but people see the glory, but not the story. So it's thank you. Boo, 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 boo. so it was constantly growing. So let's say like it wasn't like it got me by surprise. It was like from my city, from neighbors and hoods to my city, then to Bogota, then to Cali, then to Barranquilla, then Colombia, then Venezuela, then Bolivia. So it wasn't something that it was just like one day to another. So I was like really grateful. But there's a moment that everything is going so well that you don't even see it. So I think that's what happened to me. If I go back in time, I think I didn't enjoy as much as I should enjoy my first blow, like the first time that I blew up. Because I've been like in different generations and different hypes in my career. And on my first one, I didn't even enjoy as I should.
What would you do differently? How would you enjoy it more?
Well, because you gotta understand that how many billions of people are in the world, and how many can definitely live doing music and live doing what they love. And that's the thing that you maybe realize when you start growing up and you sit back and be like, wow, like I definitely live of what I love. And even though I have a lot of sacrifices and it's a really painful career, I think it's a really hard job. It's a blessing, to do what we do. So now when I grew up, I'm like, this is special, man. Like the life we have, it's a blessing, of course, at the same time. Cannot deny it that it's really a lot of pressure too.
Yeah. You've been somebody kind of on this topic. You've always been super open about your mental health.
Yeah.
And the realities of celebrity and fame. You even created a platform for Latinos called Oye that's really dedicated to mental health and wellness. Why was it important to bring that dialogue in and make that a part of your career and what people know you for?
Well, I didn't think as an artist. I just thinking as a human being. I didn't know I have anxiety and depression until I talked to a shrink. I'm like, oh shit, I've been because it was a moment in my life that that's way before, even way before I was an artist. Like I didn't know I was suffering from anxiety and not depression but anxiety until when I was 21. That I'm like, oh, this was anxiety when I was a kid and I didn't know. And then when it got worse, then I have a huge depression, and then I understood that it's one thing is being sad, another one is being depressed. When you're depressed, it's something that is stronger than you, no matter how much effort you make to it. Because I've been there. And in my case, it's a chemical disbalance. So I need chemicals to balance my chemicals. And thank God, to humans and art and technology, because we have this pill that, at least for me, have been giving me, this balance to stay, good, and it's a blessing. So the fact that, Latinos, they never talk about it, a lot of machista,
Very taboo, yeah.
So I was like, I'm living hell, and I think that maybe someone is gonna connect with me if I open about this topic. And I took a lot of shots because people were like, oh man, you're one of the biggest Latin stars and you're complaining about the press and you have money, you're famous. And I understand they don't get it because they don't know, so many people don't know what it feels like. So I took a lot of shots, and also in my, with my peers, they're like, oh, he's a pussy, he's weak. And I'm like, well, and I saw like, I had to take the shots, but at the end of the day, I save a lot of lives, because every time I do a show, thank you. Every time I do a show, someone come to me and like, listen, I wanted to commit suicide. And when you talk about it, I found out that I was suffering from what you were saying. So we have saved a lot of lives, and I didn't do it on that way. I just wanted to be honest, to express what I was feeling. And remember my label calling me like, why you talk about that? Why you did this? Why you didn't ask? I was like, listen, I cannot negotiate my human part. I just can't. And that's what happened. So took a lot of shots, but I'm grateful because now a lot of artists, they call me like, yo, I'm feeling this. Is this normal? Like, yeah, normal. Of course. And by the way, all these guys that look so tough and like, gangsters, and they're like, yo, I feel kind of weird, man. I'm like, what's up? And I'm like, you feeling this? And you feeling this? Oh, you're fucked. Welcome to the club. Yeah.
I think it's such an important topic, and I think you've always been so personal in your music as well. One of the moments that we've seen you be very personal is on your album Jose, which I think really kind of got at that idea also of the person and who you are. And you have one song where it was the heartbeat of the sonogram of your son.
Yes.
How did fatherhood play a role in your career?
Well, I can definitely, separate one to another. It's not like my sound is gonna change or some words I'm gonna change it because I have a kid. But it never been like Rose. Like I don't have like hard lyrics that are really like X-rated. So now I'm the most happy, person, when I see my kid and I feel blessed, and I think that it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And also I have a great, wife that is a great mom that give me a lot of peace too. And it's a blessing. Yeah.
One of the things that you've done recently, you have been, you were at the World Cup opening event with Ryan. Mm-hmm. Always been big into sports. Tell me a little bit about, first of all, how that performance went and how it felt to be on that stage.
Oh, it was great. I wanted to take Ryan Castro, which is an up-and-coming artist from Colombia, but he's doing really good. and we did an album together. So I was like, yo, let's come to the World Cup. Let's sing together, you know. And you don't realize how big it is until you're there, and then you see the reaction after that. You see your social media blowing up and everything. But it was beautiful. It was in Mexico, with our people, with the Latino gang, and it was a beautiful moment. And also, I'm happy that I can share those moments with my peers and with my brother Ryan Castro. Like I didn't have no one to take me to those places when I started. And if I can use my platform to, I don't know if it's make it easier, but at least to maybe just, use my platform to all win. Like I had the chance to be just by myself and take all my credits, but I'm like, I don't know. I know who I am. I know what I represent. So why I'm not going to bring another person to put the flag and be like, I'm here. Thank you.
I think that's a good example of something you've done throughout your career. I mean, on Vibras, you had an appearance by Rosalia before she had kind of blown up.
Yeah.
We saw you very, very early on touring with Bad Bunny, and you guys did Oasis together.
Yeah.
Especially with those two artists, tell me kind of what you saw in them and what caught your attention. And I think it shows so much about you've always had this eye for what's going to be big.
I just feel that there's something unique in them. When I heard Rosalia for the first time, she was already, I think she was kind of big in Spain at that time, but not as she is right now. But I found her voice, and with my producer Sky introduced me to her music. And like, this girl is out of this world. I think this is like an angel. So we invite her to be part of Vibras. So she also had like the interludes of that album with Rosalia's voice. It's like she just threw in her beautiful voice. And then we did Brillo. That was our first song in Vibras. And then we did Con Altura and, a couple of songs. And with Bad Bunny, with Benito, happened the same. I saw a guy that it was different. Remember that I came in this game and I was kissing my peers in the cheeks. And I was like, this guy is gay. I'm like, no, I just love to express myself. And if I was gay, I would have a beautiful boyfriend, like... because that's the things that we brought to the game, when we came, like color hair, the skirts, like things that I was just feeling great about it. It wasn't that I wanted to take people's attention. I was just expressing myself. So when I see this kid in Puerto Rico, doing his amazing raps, and at that time was basically a trapper, DJ Luyan, who he makes part of the history of course of Bad Bunny, introduced me to him. It's like, yo, listen to this kid. I didn't understand at the beginning, and then I'm like, oh, this is special. So since then, when I met him, he was a huge fan of my album Energia, and I was like, oh, it's cool that like he knows what I'm doing and what I'm bringing to the table. And since that day, we became like, I've been going to different places. Like there was a moment it was me and Nicky Jam. He's one of my closest friends. But I always find people to work with, to not feel like, oh, I'm competing against you. Yeah, you're still competing, but why you don't embrace your competitors and work together? And that's when, then me and Benito did, Oasis, our album, and then we did the Super Bowl together at that time with Shakira
and Jennifer
J-Lo,
Lopez.
So it was cool, it was beautiful. And then you see that Benito just did his Super Bowl, so it's beautiful that everything's been working out for all of us in an amazing way.
Do you have a favorite memory from Oasis and from making the album with him?
We shot the video here in New York, La Canción. But it's a funny story about La Canción because we didn't see it coming. To us, it was a good song, but it was kind of like an album filler, quote marks. And it's crazy because we didn't see that coming. You know, that song, it's been 7 years now, still charting, still charting. It's crazy, you know? And so we have beautiful memories of me and Benito doing songs. And I just got back from being with him in Paris. And it's so cool, man. It's so beautiful to see that, you know, I don't make part of, I don't think the one who made him to be mainstream at all. But I think that I saw something that a lot of people didn't see. but you know, he was gonna be Bad Bunny no matter what. You know, that's when life is destined to be that. I just feel blessed that I can see part of greatness too in my story, and see Carlo and see Anita and see Rosalia. You know. And then, you know, a lot of artists that they were gonna be huge no matter what, but I had the chance to work with them before they blew up.
Yeah. I think one thing that has always kind of stood out throughout your career, and I think about this when you were on stage with Beyoncé, when you guys did Mi Gente together, you have a you have a quote that I love where you said, "This is para la cultura," and it was really a moment of representation. Tell me about that. First of all, bringing Beyoncé onto that song and into Mi Gente and the breakthrough that was, but also the feeling behind that of really feeling like this was para la cultura. You were gonna sing it in Spanish.
Of course, you know, since I started, I always wanted to do music in Spanish. Of course, because I didn't know English by the way. So, so I'm like, okay, what else want to do? So I remember back in the days, you know, our huge artists like Enrique Iglesias, Shakira, you know, Ricky Martin, they did crossovers, but they did it Spanish and English versions of the same songs. And I'm like, I ain't got time for that. I don't speak English, but you know, I actually learned English because I wanted to know what the rappers were saying. And that's the power of music. You know, I've seen so many people speaking Spanish to me in the street. They're like, oh, I learned Spanish because of you. And to me, I think that goes beyond music. And we were saying too many things to say. We're talking about Beyonce. So I always say, like, you know, I'm Latino. I'm gonna represent what we do. Our language is Spanish. So I'm just gonna do Spanish until everybody listens to us in the whole world. You know? Thank you. But we cannot forget that before, you know, a lot of artists paved the way for us. And of course, in urban music, Daddy Yankee with Gasolina, and Wisin y Yandel and Tego Calderon, you know, and Don Omar, they opened those bridges for us to let us, you know, pass through. But then Mi Gente came, and it was like a life-changing thing for culture in general, not just for me. So when I was in the studio, and Beyonce's assistants at the time, he's like, oh, Blue always listen to Mi Gente 200 times a day. I'm like, okay, tell Beyonce she want to jump on the remix. You know? But I was just being a hustler, you know? Tell Beyonce to jump in the song. And then I'm like, a week after, like, oh, Beyonce, she says she's down. I'm like, really? I was just saying it, you know? So she's like, she did the song because Blue loved it so much. So that's beautiful. I hope you like the song, Beyonce, too. No, she did. And so one day I remember I moved to New York, and I was in the couch with my girlfriend, Valentina, which is my wife. We're not married, but that's my wife. Got a beautiful family. And I received a call. I remember it was like 10 p.m. Like, hey, you want to come to Coachella to perform with Beyonce? And I'm like, hell yeah. I think 3 hours before I was already there. And it was beautiful because it was a great moment, because it was the first time, if I'm not mistaken, that an Afro-American woman was performing in Coachella on main stage. So we're sending this message of being a Latino there with Beyonce, and I think that says it all. Just to see us performing in that place, a song in Spanish, doing a remix with Beyonce at the main stage in Coachella. That's for the culture, and that's those moments that make maybe a before and after in our game of urban or Latin music in general. That really was a step up.
As we kind of wrap up, I want to ask you, as you look back, and especially today, when there's certainly turbulent times in the Latino community. You've been someone who's really represented, been proud to speak Spanish, been proud to show up for your community. What are kind of your goals today, and how do you plan to keep spreading this message of positivity and representation?
Well, I think you gotta lead by example. I think you have to. I love more music than what I loved when I was a kid now, and I feel that the blessings that you guys and people are giving me the blessing to live from my music. I don't have the same struggles that I had when I was, in Colombia doing music. That I was like, okay, how can I help my dad? How can I help this? How can I help that? Now, thanks for the people, I have the time to really focus again, to be a kid in the studio and be like, I just want to go and have fun now. I'm not going to think about streams, even though you want to think about streams. You have to embrace that the new moment in music is super uncertain. People don't know where we're going. Music is totally decentralized now. There's too many platforms, short memory, and we have to understand that this is the moment we're going through music. And so that's why I like doing music for the love. If it became a hit, great. If it's not, I get my 1,000%, so I have no regrets. It's the only way. So I go to the studio now and I just have fun. I started drinking 5 years ago, so I never drink. It's crazy because I always want to be too focused in my career that I didn't want to see nothing that just take me out of my focus. But I didn't know it was so good.
I heard you and Ryan have been partying.
Oh no, the whole Omerta album with Ryan, we were drinking the whole album. But we behave good. Like we don't get. You see me always smiling and hugging, not really annoying. But I'm like, if you see me like I'm drunk, you see me like. Like I feel really. I miss a lot.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, we're super, super grateful to you for making the time, also for everything you've done in Latin music.
Thank you.
So thank you.